So let me introduce tonight's speaker, Chip O'Brien. Hey there.
Hey
Chip
there.
used to be a member of the Flycasters, actually before my time. I guess he was vice president about, what, 10 years ago or so. Used to live and writing now in Spokane. Move around quite a bit. But you can tell us more about you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I used to live in Silverton when I was in your area. And yeah, it's probably about 10 years ago now that you mention it. So um, it's so good to be with you guys. What a fantastic club. It sounds like you're just getting really active and still full of so many great people. So I miss you guys. Anyway, so I'm up here in Spokane, and I didn't really know what remarkable fishing there is up around here, not just in Washington, but we're not far. We're 20 minutes from Idaho, 3 hours from Missoula, Montana. So lots and lots of interesting opportunities. And as you will see, I haven't been just sitting around. So I'm going to take you on kind of a whirlwind tour of just some of the places that I like to fish in a variety of different states. And I hope you enjoy. So let's get started. Western Wanderings by Chip O'Brien. We're going to start in Wyoming with the Wyoming Cut Slam. The people over in Wyoming came up with this about 1996 in an effort to protect and raise awareness of four native cutthroat trout species, the Yellowstone cut, the Snake River cut, the Bonneville cut, and the Colorado River cut. As you can see from the illustration, they're really only native to western Wyoming. And let me tell you something, some of these places are as remote as you can just imagine. So this is a trip that turned into something that I wasn't really expecting. If you ever want to do the Wyoming Cut Slam, the idea is to catch all four of the native trout, take a picture in their native surroundings, just send it into Wyoming Fish and Wildlife, and they'll send you a little certificate. But what great fun. If you're going to do it with someone, make sure it's someone you like a lot, because there's so much windshield time getting to these places. But that actually took on a certain element of charm, because, I mean, Western Wyoming is beautiful. So let's see here. So we're going far, far away, remote, lots of scenery. I reconnected with an old buddy of mine, old fishing buddy of mine from Portland. And Larry and I hadn't seen each other for a couple of years. Now, here's an interesting guy. This might be relevant during these sort of political times. A long time ago, we figured out that we probably belong to different political parties and therefore might have different political opinions. So we agreed early on, we're never going to talk politics. And you know what? It's been working for us for a long, long time. We have a lot of other things in common. Larry is a reader, and so am I. So we're always talking literature. So we had lots and lots of good things to talk about while seeing some of the best scenery in the West, pursuing not necessarily the largest cutthroat trout in the world, but dwindling populations of fish that are becoming really super rare. So that's what that's all about. I wanted to do a little illustration. A couple of the rivers that we fished. The one up at the top is the Gravant. Next one down is Grays River. Next one down, the Salt River, and the bottom one is LaBarge Creek. So here's what rural Wyoming looks like. I mean, I haven't been to a place, with the exception of maybe the Canadian wilderness, where you see so few signs of man. So few, I mean, it could be the year 2024, it could be 1824. Who could tell, you know? But anyway, very, very beautiful. And a lot of the streams, not all, but a lot of them are very, very pristine. This is Grays River. And on this particular day, we were after Snake River cutthroat trout. So the streams are absolutely beautiful. Let's see. We headquartered in Alpine, Wyoming, which is maybe an hour and a half south of Jackson. but it gave us a real good kind of a central location from which to depart. Lots of unspoiled wilderness, that's for sure. Here's my buddy Larry. Just he's a cautious angler. Whenever he approaches a river, he does like we all should do. He sits down on a rock and just watches. You know, is there anything rising? What's flying in the air? Are there aquatic insects in the bushes? That sort of thing. And he is a superb angler. I don't know if any of you guys have read the Joe Pickett series by C.J. Box. It's a series of fictional books, and Joe Pickett is a Wyoming game warden, and this gentleman is a Wyoming game warden. And maybe unlike anywhere else, they all wear red shirts. And so anyway, I was a big fan of the Joe Pickett game warden series, and so when I saw him coming, naturally I asked, "Are you Joe Pickett?" Fortunately, he had a sense of humor. Anyway, he checked our license, but a super nice guy. So the fish we caught in Grays were Snake River cutthroat trout. And one thing I want you to kind of look out for as you look at these fish is all the different sorts of spotting patterns. They're all sort of closely related, but they're all their own species of cutthroat trout. That's a Snake River cutthroat trout. So now we're going down to Salt River. And Salt River, we were going after Bonneville cutthroat trout. And I'll tell you what, honestly, this stream really kind of confused me because, as you can see, it's fenced off. We went through the little angler's entrance, and there were cows everywhere on the stream. And therefore, the water quality of the stream was not that great. You know, it seems like somebody in the state of Wyoming decided to protect it, fence it, and get cattle off, and then some rancher just let them back on again. But the stream is suffering. We had a hard time finding fish, but we did. So little tributary comes in to Salt. Here's kind of a typical the water quality. The water is moving, but barely moving. Most of the fish that you could see down in the water were suckers, and we had to really work kind of hard to find the trout. Wherever there was any sort of a riffle, anything that would mix oxygen with the water is where we picked up cutthroat. And thankfully, like cutthroat trout everywhere, they love dry flies, and they were not difficult to catch. That's a Bonneville cutthroat trout. Now, one thing you might notice is not any of these endangered cutthroat trout are particularly large. The largest of the four is the Yellowstone cut. We're not there yet, but I've seen a Yellowstone cut that was an honest 29 inches. So that's the biggest cut I've ever seen, with a possible exception of the Lahontan's in Pyramid Lake over in Nevada. But anyway, absolutely gorgeous creatures. A lot of people don't realize that cutthroat trout were actually named on the Lewis and Clark expedition back in, I think it was 1802 or 4 or something like that. They stopped at Great Falls, Montana, and one of the people in the expedition was a fisherman. His name was Silas Goodrich, and Silas caught a whole bunch of previously unnamed trout below Great Falls in Montana. He looked at it and said, "Looks like a pirate slit its throat," and that's how we get cutthroat trout. LaBarge Creek, Colorado cutthroat trout. This is probably the most remote of the fisheries we pursued. It was about 4 hours in and 4 hours out on a bad dirt road. So you really got to want to find these fish. And this one turned into a little bit of an enigma. I had read that back in the 1990s, by virtue of cattle damage and so on, and a desire to bring back the native Colorado cutthroat trout, they had a multi-million, I think it was $8 million restoration of the stream in an effort to bring those cutthroat trout back. And we could see signs. There's my buddy Larry, signs of the restoration work that had been done, some signage and lots of different things like this. You can see where they're shoring up the bank that had been eroded by cattle. So you see this kind of thing all over the place, and the water absolutely looked delightful. Now, what really puzzled my buddy and I was that where were the fish? It just seemed like a perfect, idyllic trout stream, and yet it seemed to be devoid of cutthroat trout. Some critters in the area. So this is the lone Colorado River cutthroat trout that we found in that section. My buddy Larry caught it. We didn't even see another cutthroat trout in that stream. And I've just recently read that the Biden administration has given Wyoming fishing game $20 million to try to rehabilitate this stream and bring the Colorado River cutthroat trout back again. So my buddy Larry caught this fish, and he said, well, you know, I was there with him. He said, you helped me catch the fish, so it should count for you as well. And I said, no, I didn't catch that fish. And I certainly wouldn't have the heart to catch this little guy a second time just so I could get my certificate. So actually, my buddy Larry got his Cut Slam certificate. I did not, but that's perfectly fine with me. What an experience anyhow. The Gravant, probably the most beautiful of the rivers we fished. It's maybe an hour and a half east of Jackson Hole. Gravant is actually French, and it means big belly. So apparently the French trappers were here in the 1800s, and apparently big bellies were a feature of the Native Americans in that area, and so they started calling the Native Americans Gravant, and that's where the river took its name. It's the home to Snake River cutthroat trout. And what a beautiful piece of water. Again, so remote, no signs of man pretty much at all. I mean, look at the colors. It's just, you know, how could you find a more beautiful place to spend a day? And being cutthroat trout, we love cutthroat trout. They love dry flies. And so that's all we threw. And the fish loved them. Just a really, really terrific day. You know, days that you'll never, ever forget. There we go, Snake River cutthroat trout. The drive out was amazing. I hadn't even thought about it, but you're driving west now toward Jackson, and can you see the faint outlines of the Grand Tetons there in the background? Just amazing. Just what a phenomenal place. Kind of feeds your soul. The last cutthroat trout, we went up into Yellowstone National Park. Trout Lake, which is probably the home to the largest cutthroat trout in Yellowstone. That's where I saw the 29-inch Yellowstone cut. This is probably 20 years ago, and I didn't catch it, unfortunately, but I saw it. So there is a Yellowstone cut out of the water just momentarily. And I want to go back a little bit here. I was kind of looking at the red markings on the head, and you usually don't see brilliant colors like that in fish. And so I took a small throat sample, and it was scuds. And then I remembered I've got a buddy who's a fisheries professor at Colorado State University, and he told me once that if you see a fish with a lot of red, check to see if there's some scuds around. So these fish were packed full of scuds. And because there's so many scuds in Trout Lake, I mean, these fish grow to massive proportions. So anyway, Yellowstone cutthroat trout, absolutely gorgeous. So there are the 4 different kind of trout in the Cutthroat Trout Slam. Just a few other places now. As long as we're in the neighborhood, we spent a day on the Fire Hole. Just such a gorgeous place. And Yellowstone National Park will probably remain my favorite place of all time. If I could find a legal way for them to sprinkle my ashes after I'm long gone, I'll do that, but I don't think that's probably going to happen. Just, I love the place. I've been fishing it since the 1980s. It's the Fire Hole is just absolutely gorgeous. These little feeder streams come in, they're vents. The air smells like sulfur. It's wild. It's fun. We didn't catch any big fish this time, but we have in the past. Little brown trout, little rainbow trout. And then I saw this and I thought, I'm getting a little nervous here. But we're always carrying bear spray in the park. And there is the first and only wild grizzly I've ever seen on the Fire Hole River. So that was kind of a thrill. He was much more interested in the grubs in that log than in us. fortunately. All right, now we're going to go over to central Montana, the Missouri River. I've had the opportunity, actually, I've got some friends from Salem, Oregon who come up here and we fish the Missouri almost every fall. And it's a remarkable facility, river. It's about 3.5 hours from where I live. So it's not a terrible stretch. It's not something you want to go and make a day trip out of, but you want to go over there and just stay for a couple of days. So this is where the Missouri River is in this part of Montana. So it's just kind of east of Missoula. So this section we fish is below Holter Dam, and the river comes out from beneath the dam, clean and cold. It's a weird combination of fish. It's rainbow trout, and actually there's some walleyes in there. My buddy was fishing for trout below the dam from a drift boat, and he caught a 14-pound walleye, which surprised the heck out of all of us. Anyway, beautiful Montana wild trout fishing. So the best way to catch fish in the Missouri River is with nymphs, and they better be small. But on this particular day, I actually found a little kind of a side channel, and there were actually Calabatus mayflies, which I associate with still waters generally, but there were Calabatus mayflies coming off. So I switched to a dry and caught some really, really nice fish on dry flies. Madison River, Missouri River, rainbow trout. Gotta love Montana. All right, we're getting out of Montana now. We're going to Idaho, the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene River. This is about an hour and a half from my house, so it's not a long commute at all. So all the fish in the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene are West Slope cutthroat trout, which are the exact fish that was named on the Lewis and Clark expedition. Just very, very beautiful. I can't tell you how lucky I feel to be in such close proximity to places like this. Stunning. And I know it's April, but it's already starting to fish really, really well. When you work in a fly shop, as I do, you get all the latest intel, which is fantastic. Can everybody see that cutthroat trout? Look for the shadow and then look to the upper left of it. So river's either very wadeable or also very floatable. So we do it either way, both ways. There is a West Slope cutthroat trout. And it's good to take it easy once in a while. Just very, very beautiful scenery. Definitely wild country, definitely bears, definitely elk, definitely mountain lions, all kinds of things back in here. Oh, there's one of the residents right there. All right, we're going to shift down to the next lower fishery, the St. Joe River. By the way, I would like to just point out that I think the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene River and the St. Joe River are among two of the finest wild trout streams in the world. I mean, both of them are pristine, no pollution, just, as close to what they might have been like 100 years ago as I think you can imagine. So it's about 2 hours from my house. Both rivers, the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene and the St. Joe, have at least 10 or 12 campgrounds, really nice ones. So it's a real comfortable thing to go over and camp for a couple of days and fish, obviously. West Slope cutthroat trout. What did I say about red markings on cutthroat trout earlier? This guy was packed with scuds. Beautiful. Kelly Creek, one of my personal favorites. More West Slope cutthroat trout. This is an interesting place. To fish Kelly Creek, you have to hike in. There's a trail, usually well above the water in little paths to go down to fish the better places. But you have to put forth some effort. And that, strangely enough, keeps a lot of people away, which, as long as I'm willing to hike that far, is really nice because you really don't run into too many people despite the fact that the fishing is quite remarkable, and generally it's dry fly fishing. I've noticed that a lot of the cutthroat trout streams in Idaho, at least, have kind of a yellowish cast. I don't know what makes them yellow, but I've started to kind of associate that with good cutthroat trout fishing. Absolutely pristine. Hiking the trail to get to the fishing. Oops, how'd that get there? Okay. Now we're changing states. We're in Washington. This is right here in Spokane. Interestingly enough, I gave a presentation on the Spokane River to a different club last night. So this is 5 minutes from where I am right now. So the Spokane River is an urban river. It's generally known for red band trout, an ancient form of rainbow trout. But it's definitely a beleaguered stream. It's got a lot of problems. So what sounds like reasons not to fish it can also be the reasons to fish it. The one main reason to fish it is no travel time. Basically, so it's close enough that if you want to fish for an hour, it's easily doable, or 2 hours. The bad news is it's an urban stream, even though the water looks pretty pristine. This river actually starts in Silver Valley, Idaho, and there's still hundreds of miles of subterranean abandoned mine shafts and things, and all this water filters through there. It picks up heavy loads of PCBs, heavy metals, all sorts of nasty stuff. So the whole river is catch and release, mainly because they don't want anybody eating those fish. They don't think it's healthy. Nevertheless, the fishing can be quite remarkable. So there are two areas that we fish, one west of downtown, the other east of downtown, and they're very, very different fisheries. West of downtown, red band trout, a few brown trout, not many. Different floats. Again, it's not a dry fly river for the most part. It's a nymph and streamer river, but it's close. East of downtown, that's a section between downtown Spokane and Lake Coeur d'Alene over in Idaho. Much different fishery. Red band trout, smallmouth bass. And when I say smallmouth bass, there are many more smallmouth bass now in that part of the river than there are trout. They were only first discovered in the year 2000. So they've been in there for 24 years, probably washed over from Lake Coeur d'Alene. We don't even know who put them in Lake Coeur d'Alene. They're not native there either. And a couple of brown trout. In the summertime, the upper river, the river below Lake Coeur d'Alene, which is just east of Spokane, gets bath water warm. I mean, way too warm for trout. Fortunately, there is a huge underground aquifer that starts feeding icy cold water back into the river just above town. So around the 4th of July, all the smallmouth bass in the river head east and all the red band trout in the river head west. But that at least concentrates the fish in the section and makes for some pretty good fishing if you know where to go. So that's a real close option. Boat slides, there are a few people who guide the river for trout and for bass. Popular to either wade or drift. The fish are not that selective. I mean, as far as fly pattern, you naturally, like wild trout everywhere, you have to get a darn good presentation and just know when to set the hook. But so I think the fishing in the river is easy. Sometimes that's a little hard to access. Very, very slippery wading. But here are some of the rewards. Some remarkable red band trout. Fairly common to get fish over 20 inches, and they're all wild. So this is the Sandifer footbridge. This is about a minute from where I'm sitting right now. There's an old bridge piling there, and 2 years ago, sometime in September, some person found a way to put a bicycle on top of this old bridge pylon. I love seeing it. There's good fishing above it and below it, but every time I look at this darn thing, I have to chuckle. Somebody did it just as a joke. It's actually cabled to the top of that piece of concrete. I don't know. Nobody knows who did it or how they did it, but it's just always makes me laugh. There it is again, a little closer. So that's been there for about 2 years. East of town, this is the river east of Spokane, where there are red band trout, and you might even catch a brown trout. There aren't many, but there's some good ones. So that's the Spokane River, right close to where I live. So we're going to do some more of our little local Washington fisheries. This is Amber Lake. This is about 12 miles from here, so not too far. Just a remarkable fishery. This year, there've always been rainbow trout in the lake. They added West Slope cutthroat trout to the lake this year, which is turning out pretty well. So Amber Lake is a good sized piece of water, but you're really right now you're looking at the very best place to fish on the whole lake. I mean, a lot of guys come into the fly shop and they say, well, I don't have a boat. Where should I go fishing? I send them here. There's a spring about 30 or 40 feet off of this point, and it always holds fish. So it's a good place to go if you just, again, don't have a flotation device or maybe don't have a lot of time. And beautiful, beautiful fish. Lots and lots of fish over 20, some even over 25 inches, generally rainbow trout. Beautiful. Now I tease my friend Randy relentlessly about this. So fish gotta spawn, even if there's no place for them to do it. So Larry caught this fish, Randy caught this fish, I should say, and well, the fish had a little axe in it. I told my friend that that fish must have really liked your cologne or something. So that's Amber Lake. Rock Creek. Actually, these pictures are from last Friday's. They're not even a week old. This is another buddy of mine. This is actually a private stretch of water. Sometimes it's good to know the right people. So I started visiting Rock Creek as it flows out of Rock Lake several years ago, and I discovered a sign. It says no trespassing without written permission. Then it said the name Les and a phone number. I called the phone number, seeing if I could get permission. And I become friends with the landowner, Les, and he lets me come down here anytime I want. So I'll be back there again this Friday. Anyway, we did well. My friend Jerry, this is just flowing out of Rock Lake. We're going to talk about Rock Lake a little bit later. But full of huge rainbows, a few browns. I didn't catch a brown, but my friend Jerry did. Just, I assume down in Oregon, you're familiar with a fly called the balanced leech. So you're going to see a lot of balanced leeches because I am a balanced leechaholic. It is actually a Spokane, Washington pattern. One of our customers, Jerry McBride, actually invented balanced flies. And they're tied on a 90-degree jig hook. And so you don't really tie the tippet on at the front of the fly. It's kind of in the middle section. And the whole idea is that it allows the fly to hang under a strike indicator horizontally instead of vertically. But the fish they love these things, and you'll see I tie balanced leeches in a variety of different sizes and shapes and lots of different color combinations. But the fish love them. Rock Creek. Okay, Coffeepot Lake. Fantastic. This is about an hour west of here in a part of Washington called the Channeled Scabland. If you know anything about the theory of Lake Missoula, there was a prehistoric, very, very large prehistoric lake that took up big portions of Idaho and Montana. And the theory suggests that there were ice dams that held the water in place. And over the course of several million years, those ice dams breached, causing a tremendous landscape-changing flood that happened repeatedly and just absolutely carved this landscape. I mean, the water that was rushing through here might have been a wave 500 feet high, traveling at 300 miles an hour. So definitely the power to move huge boulders, but it's carved out a whole bunch of kind of high desert lakes just west of Spokane, and this is one of them. It's interesting. You'll notice the geography, a lot of 100-foot tall basalt walls, and the bay that where this gentleman is, I know it's close to the shore, but parts of the bay are over 100 feet deep. So definitely that's where the trout are, because the water is cold. Beautiful trout. Sometimes it seems like there aren't any small trout in Coffeepot Lake, and it's a little hard to see. You can see the goose on the right, but the one elevated in the air on the left. Whenever you fish Coffeepot Lake, there must be some goose nests there, because you will be nagged by geese all day long. But as long as you're catching fish, it kind of becomes the music of Coffeepot Lake, and I really like it. I go back and forth between hanging nymphs or balance leeches under indicators and pulling. This is a sparkle minnow streamer pulling on a sinking line. Fish love those things. So this is kind of an interesting place. I mentioned how deep this water is. So there's a rock ledge right in front of my friend Damon here. But can you see along the edge? I mean, he's standing on kind of a rock platform, but when it drops off, I mean, like 100 feet. So this particular day was the second week after the lake opened, and I was fishing with this gentleman, and I had a sinking line on with a balanced leech, and I was talking to him. At that particular moment, I wasn't even fishing, and my line went straight down. I'm not even paying attention to it, and all of a sudden, boom! I have a fish on, and which is odd because I was talking to my friend. I wasn't even really fishing. He kind of set the hook on himself. A little while later, the same thing happened again when I was not really even fishing, until I figured out the fish aren't out in the lake. They're 20 feet below my feet on that rock wall. So I started really working the rock walls on those big drop-offs and have been doing very, very well. So that's really, really helped my fishing. Rock Lake. This is the lake above the Rock Creek you saw earlier. It's the largest lake in eastern Washington, 7 miles long, about a mile wide, almost, well, in places over 400 feet deep. Now that's key because of the size and depth of the lake. It doesn't freeze in the wintertime, and it gets colder up here than it does where you are, but it doesn't freeze. And so I fish it in, December and January and so on, and do quite well. So I'm looking at the vertical basalt walls. We had a customer come in the shop, and he told us a story about there were places on Rock Lake that he would like to tie his boat off and just kind of fish right off that steep rock face, until one day a rattlesnake fell off from up above into his boat. I mean, he's telling me this serious story about the rattlesnake in his boat, and I am trying not to laugh, not very successfully. But the guy finally jumped in the water to get away from the rattlesnake. But so rattlesnake fell in his boat. So I don't know. Balanced leeches, lots and lots of different colors, and they're really, really effective. There's my current favorite with the fluorescent orange bead and brown marabou. It's a great fly. Notice where the eye of the hook is. That's kind of what makes it hang horizontally in the water. Terrific fly pattern. If you haven't tried it, easy to tie, whip some up, and get out there and use them to catch fish. My buddy Don. I think he looks pretty cold. This one might have been January. A different variation of balanced leech, a purple and pink one. Fish still like it. Look at that, black and chartreuse. Fish still like it. Some of the geography at Rock Lake. Beautiful rainbows. A lot of people suggest the next state record brown trout is going to come from Rock. The state record in Washington is 22 pounds. I've seen a 17-pound rainbow, or brown trout rather, come from Rock, so you never know. Big fish. So I'm looking at, this is the bridge just next to the boat launch ramp at Rock, but I'm looking at that big flat rock in the background because there's some history at Rock, and I always like history. This is Cliff House. This was a hotel that was on the lake for I think 2 years, 1920 to 1922, and it burned down in 1922. But the rock's still there. It looks exactly the same. So this is over 100 years ago in the same place. All right, now we're dropping down into Oregon, Diamond Lake. I don't hear enough fly fishers really talk about Diamond Lake. It can be a great big, almost intimidating piece of water. There's Mount Thielsen in the background, but it's a beautiful place. And let me tell you, it is a food factory and a great place to fish. So this is one of my former students who I taught to fly fish. I heard you at the beginning of the meeting talking about the Blue Den. And it just turned out that the owners of the Blue Den, all their kids went to the school where I was teaching there in Staten, Oregon. And so we had free access to Blue Den anytime we wanted. And we had a fly fishing club. And Gabe, one of my students here, was a member of that club. So we spent a lot of time at Blue Den, but he's as big a fishing fool as any of the rest of us now. So good things. They're really, really big fish in Diamond, if you know where to fish. And I have to say that I really, really believe it's very, very critical to your development as a fly angler to pay your dues. Even though I sort of make my living off of talking about fishing and helping people catch fish, I also kind of think that I don't want to tell you everything. I don't want to tell you what rock to stand on and what fly to use, because you have to be allowed to figure some of that stuff out for yourself. Otherwise, you're not growing as an angler. So just know from these pictures that Diamond Lake, you can figure it out. And there are some really, really big trout there. Fatties. Way to go, Gabe. Some of you I know have fished the Owyhee. And this is a river that confuses me all the time because, as you probably have figured out, the people in Boise, the fishermen in Boise, have discovered it, and it's about an hour and a half away from there. So it's become more crowded. But despite the fact that there are more people there, the way I see people fish it, you wonder how they catch anything. A couple of things you need to know about the Owyhee. It is a small bug destination. When I fish usually with nymphs, I'm fishing probably 20s and 22s. And I see people out there with, big rubber legs and things like that and just casting and casting and casting. And that's all they're going to do. They're not going to do any catching. So it's a good place to go for principally wild brown trout. There's some rainbows in there, but the browns are absolutely remarkable and probably some of the most healthy wild brown trout I have ever seen anywhere. This is Avery, Idaho, the thriving metropolis, the closest city to the Owyhee. So if you need to run into town, this is what you see. And somebody's got a sense of humor. This is the Far Eastern Oregon State Capitol building, Adrian City Hall. Here's why we go to the Owyhee. Big slabs. Crooked River. I don't know about you guys. I always get 50-50 red band trout and whitefish on the Crooked, but it's still a wonderful place. So this little girl and her dad were out fishing and not catching, and I happened to hook this fish, and she asked me if I would take her picture with my fish. But she was thrilled, and so everybody was happy. But the places that we go, the places that we visit, I mean, how can they not become a part of you? Look how beautiful that is. Upper Deschutes. I'm sure some of you have fished the Upper D. Doesn't look anything like the middle or the lower D, but they're all very, very distinctive. But I think of the three sections, upper, middle, and lower, that this is by far the most beautiful section of the Deschutes River. Of all things, there are brook trout in this water. They're not native. I don't know where they came from, but they sure are remarkable. There's some really, really big ones. So it's nice to be able to go out and catch different species of fish. And I guess you're seeing a lot of different species of fish in this presentation, but this is the only one that's not a trout. It's a char. All right, we're dropping down into California. Upper Sacramento River. That's my son Zach. Now, my son Zach is the owner of a digital magazine, Active NorCal magazine. So when I'm visiting, we're fishing in the river, and they've got a drone flying over me. And I look up at the drone, my feet go out from under me. I do a belly flop in the water. My son falls in the water laughing at his father. So at least he's been gentleman enough never to show anybody that video of us both falling in the river. Mighty Mount Shasta, 12,126 feet. I've been to the top 9 times, attempted at 13, but that's right there. Beautiful, beautiful Northern California. And the little town of Dunsmuir. If there are any fans of the old TV program Andy of Mayberry, I don't think there's a town that's more like Mayberry than Dunsmuir, California. It's got what, 1,600 people, and a beautiful wild trout stream. The Upper Sac flows right through the middle of town. What's not to love? And the historic Ted Fay Fly Shop. When I'm in town, I never fail to stop. The owner of it now is Bob Grace, and his name fits him. He's just the nicest guy in the world. So if you're ever down in that area, stop by Ted Fay Fly Shop in Dunsmuir. Good people. Lots of really, really nice rainbow trout. Back in the early 1990s, there was a railroad disaster on this river. A railroad car went off a bridge into the water, dumping 33,000 gallons of an herbicide, metamsodium, into the Upper Sacramento River. And it killed all life in the river, all bugs, all plants, all fish, for 36 miles downstream. I was working for California Trout in those days, so we had a lot going on. So they closed the river to fishing for 4 years. The day they opened it back up to fishing, I was there. I think I caught like 18 in 2 hours. I mean, the fish had never been fished for before. And I was really surprised. Even after 4 years, there were some pretty big boys in there. So rivers do recover. And I put this in for sentimental reasons. This is in Dunsmuir City Park. You can kind of see the river there in the background, but if you look down at the bottom right, it says Shasta Fly Fishers. I was president of Shasta Fly Fishers in those days. I personally helped build that sign, so it's a little bit of nostalgia for me. Keswick Reservoir. I guided Keswick for 4 years, and people thought I was a little bit crazy. You can see that it comes up, that's big Shasta Lake up above, one of the largest reservoirs in California. That icy water comes down underneath the dam, but there is zero bank access. And the boat launch ramp is 7 miles downstream. So that's a problem. So I was there one day and I noticed that I could see what appeared to be some rather large trout swimming around there. And the only way I could figure out how to access those fish was with my float tube. So I launched the float tube and I discovered something that would rule my fishing for the next decade, probably. You float Keswick Reservoir in a float tube, you float down. When it's time to get out, there are numerous different little access places, little basically holes in the streamside vegetation, but you can get from the water up to what used to be an old railroad bed. Now it's a rail to rail, what do they call it? Rail to trail. Anyways, now it's a big hiking and biking trail, and you can just throw your float tube on your back and hike back to your vehicle. I'll fish down for as many as 4 or 5 hours, get out, and it's a 15-minute hike back to my vehicle. So it's really not undoable. And I would guess the average size rainbow trout in Keswick is at least 17 or 18 inches. A lot of big fish. My son Zachary, accompanying his dad, fishing Keswick. These fish don't get much fishing pressure. I just basically hang a beaded nymph under a strike indicator and pay attention. 28-inch rainbow. So if there's any kind of a message I would like to leave you guys, it's that you need to get off the sofa and get out there. I will turn 70 years old this summer. When I tell people that, they're very often surprised, say I look much younger. Well, I think part of the reason for that is because I'm always out. I'm always fishing. I'm always doing. I'm always having an adventure. I'm going to go back to Rock Creek on Friday, but my main project for this summer is I want to learn how to catch a carp on a fly rod. So it's not going very well yet, but stay tuned. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Fly fishing keeps you youngish. Remember that. We all need a dose of that in our lives. And with that, I thank you. Any questions?
So does anybody have any questions of Chip? Raise your hand.
I know I've covered a
on.
lot of material.
So Chip, this goes back to the Cal Trout days. I used to fish Yellow Creek all the time. And
Yes.
do you know if that's running? Did that get burned out a few years back? I don't know what happened.
I remember when they brought back Yellow Creek, but honestly, you know, I kind of lost touch with it. I don't really know the status of what's going on there. And I never had the opportunity to fish it. It was a beautiful meadow stream. I've seen the pictures, but I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question.
It was absolutely the split rail fence, everything the Cal Trout did to, to get it going again, to get it restored and keep the cattle out. And then they finally moved all the cattle out anyway. Later on, I moved out of California back 2005. So that was for me. And now I'm in Oregon. I came up to Oregon, so I haven't been back. And
yeah, I was headquartered in Redding, so I didn't get down that far very often. But
the North San Diego, the North Sacramento was really where I learned to fish. So that was
the Upper Sac.
Yeah, the Upper Sac. So that was the best thing for me. But
what a fantastic, beautiful stream! You know, when that railroad car went off the bridge in the early 1990s, they were actually able to count fish corpses, and somebody figured out that stream had over 8,000 wild trout per mile in it. Now that's getting up there. There are not too many streams that support that kind of a fish population.
No, that was the thing when I first started fishing. I only started fishing up there a year or two before that at Cantera Loop, and so that was the end of it for 3 or 4 years until they opened it up again. But there's a spot that's up above where the accident was that you can access up by the lake.
Cantera.
Yeah, and you can get back in through that end, and that is on certain days it's just phenomenal. That's a secret spot, but it's all out there.
The Box Canyon up there. I've fished it many times.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Well, thank you. Any other questions?
We have a question. Chip, hold on a sec. Hi, Chip. Ken Carnosh.
Hey, Ken, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, I saw you smoking the cigar there earlier. How many liters that cigar?
Yeah, I used to smoke cigars when I mowed the lawn and when I fish. Now I don't mow lawns anymore, so I just smoke cigars when I fish, which isn't too much.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. You mentioned something about working at a fly shop. Well, where are you working, and are you guiding again?
I'm not guiding. So I retired from teaching, and I fished all over the West for about 3 years. And then, if you can imagine, I got a little bored, and I Googled fly fishing jobs in Spokane. I had never worked in a retail store in my life, so it's North 40 Outfitters. And they have a fly shop. It's called House of Fly. So I am a sales associate there. Basically, I sell fly fishing stuff, but as you all know, I mean, people come into fly shops not only to buy things, but to get information, and oftentimes give information. So, I mean, what a mecca for local fly fishing, knowledge. People come and talk to me about their experiences pretty much on a daily basis. So it helps me have a pretty good handle on the fishing around here. There's also an employee discount, which I like very, very much. So I'm having a time of my life working in a fly shop.
Other questions for Chip? Hi, Chip. Michael Swanson here. I'm going to the Owyhee here next month. 20s and 22s. What patterns?
Okay, here's how you catch fish. The two ways I'd go, very small Euro nymphs, try perdigons, try waltz worms, but small. I mean 20s, 22s. Another thing that I did, a lot of times you'll see rising fish right there. But what you seldom see after the rise is a bubble, which means the fish really didn't hit something on the surface. They're taking probably something in the film or something just beneath the surface. So go ahead and fish a small dry fly, maybe a size 20, paradon or something like that. But hang a very, very small, like 2022 fly. A bead would probably be too heavy, but put some brass wire, maybe something like a brassy would work great. Just trail it behind a dry fly with 6X monofilament and tie it to the bend of the dry fly. The fish will come up, look at the dry fly, and it'll even look like they're taking your dry fly. But when you get that fish in, it's the nymph the fish has taken. That has worked really, really well for me there.
Are you in Coeur d'Alene or Spokane? Your
I'm
fly
in Spokane.
That's-
Spokane. The fly shop is actually in West Spokane, close to a place called Airway Heights.
I'm going to be in Coeur d'Alene middle of May, and
Oh.
I'm by your shop.
Yeah, it's just west, just a few miles west of Spokane, right off the freeway.
Thank you.
Yeah, stop by. It'd be great. Anybody else?
Anybody online? Go ahead and raise your hand if you're online. You want to ask a question, we can unmute you. Thank you, Chip. Always nice to see you.
My pleasure. You guys are awesome. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. So good to see you too. So everybody get out there, okay?